lots of AI this year. No surprise.
No.
And you've worked in AI like for over 15 years.
Yeah. I started in 2010 working on it in the e-discovery and legal space.
What is e-discovery?
So electronic discovery, if you watch movies like The Firm, where they brought in all the boxes of the papers and, they time-lapse it, and I've got that piece of evidence. Well, in today's day and age, that's all electronic documents, all the emails, all of the PowerPoints, the spreadsheets, the everything else, all of those are documents, and there's exponentially more of it than there ever was before. And so e-discovery is going through all of those documents and doing the same basic process of filing them, tagging them, highlighting on them, all those sorts of things, just like they did in the paper-based world, and finding out which things are related to a lawsuit itself and which things have no relevance at all.
Interesting. So I'm sure there's a lot of things that are similar, and then maybe also a lot of things that are different. So if you had to rebuild the e-discovery service now with access to the models and the algorithms and stuff that are more readily available than maybe you had to build your own back then.
Right.
What do you think is different?
So the LLMs definitely have gone a long way from what we did. Well, what we did was early day ages that we built ourselves. We experimented. We learned a lot of things that we were doing wrong. And now when you chat GPT, some of the technology we use, it knows what we did wrong and what that was good at and not good at. LLM's really good at that. At the same time, they're a bit mystical in how they work. And so when we were in e-discovery at that point in time, it had never been through anything in court, had never been defended, and we had to have full visibility and auditability into what we did, how we did it. So if that's still true today, the fact that you can't rewind what it was and defend how you got to a decision would probably still leave me home growing so that I could have a defensible algorithm. If I didn't have to defend that anymore, I'd definitely go with the LLMs in a heartbeat.
Right. So I think I'm starting to see the trend here where if you're using it for your homework or to draft some emails and things like that, the level of implication, if there's something wrong, is not as high compared to something that you're using in the courtroom or maybe like a medical device. So tell me, like, if you're architecting a solution today, when would you more likely use an LLM, and when might you say, hey, let's start straight from the algorithm and build from there up? And correct me too if that question didn't make sense.
No, that makes total sense. So, the easy ones that people are doing a lot, where you can take the LLM, integrate it with RAG, throw it at, Elasticsearch database that has all of your knowledge base and everything else, is like the chatbot to augment your customer support. So that's an easy one. You can feed it in with all of the FAQs you have, your whole knowledge base that your support people might be using already. And you just trained it quickly, faster than you ever trained the humans, right? And that would work very well, because you don't necessarily have to worry about defending how it got the answer.
Right.
You just need it to help provide the answer. Ideally, I'd build a workflow around how it was dealing with things it didn't know and things it didn't have an answer to, and could it escalate that to a higher level? Because your human customer support escalated. They reached that point. So if I was doing something in the medical space, I think it would depend on whether it was more experimental or whether it was something that I was going to have to explain and rewind. So if it was something that was just experimental, where it was just helping me brainstorm, come up with solutions, or automating a process, still makes for, all the existing technologies make for good solutions there. I think the real difference is when I'm going past the boundaries of what it can do, the easiest of which is explaining how it came to the decision and rewinding that.
And so that explains, in terms of the core decision engine between when to use an algorithm, when to use a model. If I'm thinking back at 2010 timeframe is what you said with e-discovery, what are other, mobile was kind of early, cloud was just starting.
Cloud was just starting.
So what are some other things that you look at now outside of the core AI part that, would have made your lives a lot different in the e-discovery days?
Yeah, well, back then the data was exponential, right? So when it came to emails and things like that, I'd email you a document and it was an attachment. You'd email me back your revision and it was a new attachment. Nowadays, cloud storage has changed a lot too, and the implementation of that. So generally, we're not sending a document back and forth anymore. We're sending the link to the cloud storage of it.
Right.
That's changed that game quite a bit. Now, there are going to be needs to dive into the version history of it,
Right.
but that's less often the need and less often the case. So
You're operating at a metadata level here versus having to actually parse through the almost same document 15 times.
and we had to write a lot of logic around near duplicates. To try to say, look, we already saw the latest version of this. We don't need to look at the other 250 earlier versions. Cloud storage changes that whole game a lot.
Let's maybe switch gears from building AI to using AI for building a variety of apps.
Sure.
Where are you seeing that different on your teams?
So what I really find interesting is how that adoption curve, it really isn't much of a curve. It's pretty binary. It's yes or no. People are adopting it and finding it's helping me. It's improving me. It's making me faster. They're using Copilot and things like that. And they're saying, it's not perfect, but it just saved me a whole bunch of keystrokes.
Yeah.
It got me fast forwarded. There's the other people who are just like, it didn't give me the right answer and I'm not using it anymore. And I find that so strange. I heard somebody was using it to build all their tests and test data, generate test data. And I was like, that's brilliant. Why wouldn't you let it just manufacture a whole bunch of test data and create that for you in a second?
Yeah, for sure. And if it does 90% of the work, then the other 10% is going and finding in the test data case, maybe the other exceptions
That's right.
that AI may not have the context around, but your BAs and PMs and everyone else can spend more time ideating those pieces, right?
And you and I have talked many times about like the intern. And when I'm talking with senior engineers, I tell them, I say, you are senior. You're not being replaced. But if you had a junior engineer, wouldn't you have them do some of the work and you still have to double check it?
Yep.
You still have to maybe edit it and take on the harder tasks. This is your junior engineer.
Awesome, I love it. And when it comes to, call it interviewing, right? I'm hearing this debate about some hiring managers not really liking the interviewee using Copilot. If we were doing like a Zoom pairing session or a remote pairing session rather, what are your opinions on if the person wants to use Copilot? Would you tell them to turn it off? Would you tell them, what would you say?
If somebody wanted to use Copilot, I would be all for it. I would say, yes, let's do this. Let's pull that in. There was a time when people were starting to Google things more.
Yeah.
There was a time when that was taboo. And engineers thought, I have to know everything. I have to have memorized everything. And you're cheating if you use Google. I think we're at that same phase right now where there's people who think you're cheating if you're using the AI. And I think that that's a short phase, just like we now Google all the time to help get our answers.
Like using a to-do list instead of remembering it, or using a calculator instead of doing mental math, right? For sure. I might even be concerned if they don't have Copilot turned on today.
Yeah.
Which, not all work environments support it, so it is telling in terms of how much time maybe that candidate spends at work versus outside of work.
Right.
On how passionate they are about it.
Absolutely. And how much they're experimenting with it and getting ready for it, because it's coming.
And you lead teams of not just engineers, but also product folks and designers and stuff. How are you seeing the use of AI kind of zoomed out from software development to product delivery more in general?
Yeah, so we're using it across the board in all kinds of ways. So starting with summarizing meetings, having those meetings where we're going through scope or requirements, and the AI will summarize them, pull out the bullets. We can use it to draft up the stories and help draft up the acceptance criteria. So we use it for the business side of it as well as the engineering side throughout. We use it to write tests. So it's perfectly good at doing a lot of those jobs. And again, even like a junior level skill, regardless whether we're talking a PM or an engineer or what have you, it's getting a lot of work done, even if somebody else has to refine it in the end.
So there's a little bit of a mindset, as well as maybe like a juice to squeeze ratio would test first.
Yes.
Right? And I sometimes wonder if having Copilot or having something be able to generate the test first
Yes.
continues to be, maybe still the pragmatic, efficient way, or if maybe is there a shift that may come where test after just makes more sense now, given how efficiencies change? Like, what's your instincts tell you about that, or what have you seen?
My instincts tell me that I think test first TDD is going to actually start to increase. My instincts say it's so much better, the AI is so much better at writing the tests, and once I have that, then my unit test coverage is already covered. And so writing the test after, now I'm really watching the AI to see, did it write the right thing, and am I getting the right test coverage? So I think that will shift harder towards TDD, that it helps me to have my unit test coverage that everybody wants to have, and it's doing what it does, the AI is doing what it does best, and making me move faster because it's writing so much of the code.
Now that I think about it, going back to your intern analogy, if you were to write the tests, and then, you had to go away to go to a dentist appointment and you had an intern you were working with,
Right.
They're probably better off kind of writing the code to satisfy those tests versus giving them code and telling them, hey, please write tests against this. And yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad we got to soundboard that.
They're more likely to make sure that the tests pass.
Yes, exactly.
I actually have this dream where you're used to seeing in so many of the UIs today where there's the thumbs to, was this helpful, was this not helpful? And you don't know what happens after you click that. My thought is that's going to turn into some AI where when you thumbs down, it asks you, what didn't you like? And that will start to turn into a interpretation of would it look better something like this? And it starts to model, and that automatically generates the stories, maybe even does the code, submits a pull request. I think it's still going to go through an approval process to make sure that nobody's hacking into the systems or doing anything malicious. Still an approval process, but code writing code.
I love this. And then, you can start integrating things like Hotjar that has heat mapping and things like that you can start to infer maybe like, hey, a lot of people that have followed this pattern seems to hit the thumbs down.
That's right.
So instead of saying, what did you not like? It's saying, hey, is this the thing you didn't like? And then it kind of makes it an easier input to create that feedback loop from the user. Man, that's awesome. You're going to live rent-free in my head for a little bit with that one. So
Okay.
appreciate it.
Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube.